Webinar. I'm going to give it just a few more seconds as people start to enter, and we'll get started. Okay, thank you all. I see people are still joining. Welcome. Today's webinar is Steering the Transition, Electric School Bus Drivers. This event is taking place as part of the National Drive Electric Week, which is being celebrated September 22nd to October 1st. You can learn about it and register for other EV-related events at the National Drive Electric Week website. Fitting for National Drive Electric Week, our focus today is on the perspective of electric school bus drivers. They are literally driving the school bus electrification transition forward, and being on the front lines, have an invaluable perspective to share. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. First, a couple of housekeeping items. Closed captions are available for this webinar, and please note that the webinar is being recorded. A copy of the recording, the slides, and any additional resources will be shared with all those who attend today. Feel free to start dropping in any questions you have in the Q&A box, and we're going to do our best to get to as many of those as possible during the Q&A session later in the hour. My name is Brittany Barrett. I'm a senior manager at the World Resources Institute Electric School Bus Initiative, which aims to partner with schools, communities, and others across the country to create unstoppable momentum towards electrifying the entire fleet of U.S. school buses by 2030. Prior to joining WRI, I spent 16 years working in bus operations and was a general manager of a public transit system. I have firsthand understanding of our frontline bus workforce and a deep respect for the work of bus drivers. Our co-host today is the Alliance for Electric School Buses, which is a national coalition of not-for-profit organizations dedicated to the equitable transition of the U.S. school bus fleet to zero-emission electric school buses. The coalition has been pushing for hashtag Clean Ride for Kids since 2017 and has helped secure funding for school buses at the local, state, and federal level. Finally, we're going to be joined by 3 ESB drivers, experts in their field. We'll hear from Carmen Pena Duran, who's a bus operator in Modesto City Schools in California, Margarita Villalobos, who is an ESB pilot driver in Salt Lake City School District in Utah, and Trish Ria, who is the bus driver and trainer for Three Rivers Community Schools in Michigan. I'll tell you more about them and their roles momentarily. So first, we'd like to launch a quick poll to find out more about your districts. You should be seeing a 1-question poll pop up. And even if you're not a school district, please feel free to fill out the poll for what you know about a district in the community you live in or who you may be working with. And maybe when we have some responses, we'll take a look and see what the audience is today. So, okay, the majority, 53% no. We have 14% not yet, but they're coming soon. 26% yes, and 7% I don't know. That is such a great mix. I'm really excited, especially for those who don't know or know they don't yet. This is going to be great information for you from these bus operators. So, to set the stage for the discussion with the panelists, I'm going to first share some background on electric school buses, their benefits, and current deployments across the U.S. So let's start with the big question on why ESBs? Well, there are 480,000 school buses in the United States. Compared to public transit, there's about 60 or 70,000 of those buses. Every day, 20 million children get on a yellow bus to go to school. So first and foremost, it's about the children. Exhaust from traditional diesel school buses is unsafe, with proven links to serious physical health issues, as well as cognitive development impacts, putting students' health and academic achievement at risk. Electric school buses are the only school bus option with zero tailpipe emissions. This reduces student exposure to harmful pollutants like nitrogen oxide, which contributes to respiratory and heart disease. Next, there's the opportunity for reducing operating expenses. Electric school buses have lower maintenance and fuel costs over time, and research suggests that after the upfront cost, an electric school bus could save schools about $2,000 annually in fuel costs and $4,400 in maintenance. Now, there's also the opportunity for new jobs. It's pretty simple. Electric school buses offer the chance to create thousands of meaningful, well-paying jobs in the US, and we should seize the opportunity. As a high visibility vehicle for students, electric school buses can normalize electric mobility for an entire generation. And lastly, there's also the extended opportunity of resiliency and renewables integration. Electrifying the entire school bus fleet can unlock significant storage via vehicle to grid for utilities, which can be used to reduce the variability of clean energy generation and provide extra capacity during emergency response. So let's go to the next slide. I mentioned on the previous that this transition is first and foremost about children. Diesel fumes have proven links to serious physical health issues, as well as cognitive development impacts. Exposure to harmful exhaust may be especially high for students who ride the bus. Diesel exhaust from school buses contributes to ambient pollution broadly, and as these buses travel through neighborhoods, they can pose a local residential risk and concentrate pollution around the schools when they're idling. Compounding all of this, on the next slide, you can see that the communities most at risk and harmed by this are disproportionately low income, as well as Black, Hispanic, and Native American populations. Next slide. So we can see why electric school buses are such an opportunity and why it's so important to act now. So why aren't we moving faster? Well, with every new technology, there are challenges to be overcome. Some of these include higher upfront costs. An electric school bus is about 3 times as expensive as a diesel bus. The infrastructure is still being built out and developed, and it requires involving outside organizations such as utilities. It's a new technology, and there are concerns that need to be addressed, such as range anxiety or cold weather operations. I'm actually really looking forward to hearing more about that from our Three Rivers driver. And lastly, there's the need to scale quickly. Currently, less than 1% of the US fleet is electric. As I said, there's 480,000 school buses in the US. So on the next slide, let's look at a breakdown of where they are operating. So this slide is an excerpt from our adoption data, which we update on an ongoing basis. We actually just had our most recent publication earlier this week. So if you haven't been to our website, you can check it out. We also have an interactive dashboard, so you can look at the latest statistics that we update on an ongoing basis. So you can see here that the first electric school buses hit the road in 2014. So we're coming up on a 10-year anniversary. You look a little bit later and we really start seeing some growth in late 2019. And now with the launch of the Clean School Bus program, we have reached over 5,600 buses. Electric school buses are operating in every kind of community, not just California. They're even in Alaska, operating in negative 38-degree temperature. We have electric school buses committed in 49 states and 5 territories. Come on, Wyoming. You've got to make it 50. All right. WRI has published a market report and buyer's guide over the last 2 years that presents many makes and models of buses available, along with the specs like battery range, seating capacity, and if they're lift equipped. On this slide, we have an image from that market report that I think helps demystify the difference in an electric school bus and an internal combustion engine bus, or ICE for short. This is from a component perspective. So you can see here, there's many parts of the bus listed. The ones in red, those are pieces of the bus you'll no longer have to deal with an electric school bus. So those go away. The ones in blue indicate the parts of components of the bus that are common between both electric and ICE. I know I've spoken with many districts that are concerned that their mechanics won't be able to work on these buses. As you can see, there are still many parts of the bus that don't change. And while mechanics work on gaining new skills for the high voltage parts, there's still plenty they can work on. In a few minutes, you'll hear from drivers on how the driving experience differs between these two types of buses in terms of technique and noise. Next, I'd like to introduce Carolina Chacon, the Coalition Manager for the Alliance for Electric School Buses, who will share some brief context on school and electric school bus drivers.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I'm excited to be here with all of you today to talk about school bus drivers, who are one of the most critical components of the school bus industry. Drivers help transport students to and from school every day, and they help ensure a safe environment inside the bus. They may even help students get on and off the bus, depending on their individual needs. And so they are really critical of this transition, and we know that we can't do it without the drivers that serve school buses. To drive a school bus, drivers need a commercial driver's license, or CDL, with a special endorsement for school buses, which means for a Class B or C vehicle. Obtaining a CDL can take weeks, cost hundreds of dollars, and has many requirements, including proof of citizenship and a medical examination in some states. So drivers do have to go through a lot to get those licenses. To date, as you can see in this map, there are over 350,000 school drivers in the United States, with major concentrations in New York, Texas, and Pennsylvania. Next slide. Of those 350,000 drivers, nearly 200,000 work for public school districts, and another 125,000 or so drivers work for private school bus fleet contractors, so companies that have their own school buses that lease them to school districts. Just over 30,000 drivers work for municipalities or local governments. As you can see here, the mean hourly wage of a school bus driver is about $20 an hour, with a mean annual wage of about $42,000. Next slide. As Brittany talked about earlier, we know that electric school buses present an opportunity to really clean up the air that students are breathing, but this is obviously also true for drivers. School bus drivers are also exposed to toxic diesel pollution on the job, which includes several hours for the morning route and several hours for the afternoon route. Those air pollutant levels inside the school bus can be greater than the levels that you would find outside of the school bus, particularly when you're talking about particulate matter pollution, which is in many cases too small to see, but that can be 4 times as higher than you would find in ambient levels. And this is especially bad inside of the bus cabin, where drivers spend most of their time. But for drivers, electric school buses can mean no tailpipe pollution, meaning that there's no toxic air inside their buses and no diesel fumes when they're at their bus depots, idling their buses or warming them up, which is a huge improvement to drivers' work environment and quality of life. Next slide. Drivers can also expect some other benefits, along with less pollution and better health. We often hear from drivers the fact that electric school buses are quieter than diesel buses, which makes hearing kids inside the bus a lot easier and provides a much calmer environment. Drivers will also need training to understand regenerative braking, which is a skill that has to be learned and practiced, and that can greatly impact the battery state of charge and range. We've also heard from drivers that they really enjoy how quickly electric school buses can accelerate, how easy they are to drive in snowy or icy conditions because of their lower center of gravity. But with electric school buses, you also have some new responsibilities. You have to understand the battery state of charge. Some drivers are tasked with plugging their buses into chargers, and they'll also have to work with first responders in the event of an emergency or incident. All of this requires training, which brings us to training needs. Drivers will need to be trained on the basics of understanding an electric school bus, including being able to identify key stickers and labels and understanding which parts are high voltage and require special handling, such as protective gear. Drivers will also need to understand how their pre-trip routine can change, and how startup procedures might also be altered with electric school buses. They'll need to understand how to drive efficiently and safely, how to read the battery's state of charge, and how to adapt to regenerative braking, which we've already talked about a little bit, but is incredibly important because it can return anywhere from 20 to 30% of the energy that was used back to the bus's battery. And again, drivers may also be tasked with charging responsibilities, and so they might need that training to understand how to make sure that they're working with the chargers correctly, that they're doing everything that they need to do before they leave their jobs. And in some cases, they may also need to understand what happens if the bus needs to be towed, in the rare instance that happens. Adequate training can make sure that school bus drivers feel comfortable with their task and confident in their bus's performance, and can even help maximize how many miles a school bus can go on a single charge. So manufacturers and dealers can and must provide training for drivers to successfully complete their roles. There are web-based training programs that can prepare drivers in addition to manufacturer and dealer training, including the battery electric bus familiarization videos from the Transit Training Center and the EV driver and technician training that is offered by the Department of Energy's Alternative Fuels Data Center. So when we're talking about best practices, again, it's critical to really ensure that school bus operators, whether that's a school district or a private company, ensure that they are procuring the training that they need as part of purchase agreements and contracts that they make with dealers and manufacturers and other companies that might be supporting the deployment of their electric school buses. Training doesn't always come with the purchase package, and when provided is offered sometimes only when the buses are delivered and not on an ongoing basis. And so again, for school districts, school bus operators, we really recommend making sure that you're securing the training that you need as often as you need it. We've also seen that training for electric school bus operators isn't necessarily standardized, which means that the quality can change. And so that's something else that school bus operators will need to keep in mind. But still, when the opportunity presents itself, school bus operators should ensure that not only are drivers receiving the necessary training, but they're assigning trainers that can support incoming staff down the line. This train the trainers model can ensure that school bus operators have drivers that are always ready to go and always receiving adequate support for their needs. Next slide. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention a major problem that's been plaguing the school bus industry for some time. There's a dire driver shortage. Driver shortages tend to hurt low-income families the most, since any canceled or altered routes means that they have to find alternative means of getting children to school. For drivers, it can mean added pressure, more routes, or even having other school transportation or school district staff taking up driver duties. School bus operators, we found, have trouble in some cases recruiting and retaining drivers with a CDL, which are problems that the pandemic only made worse. Drivers cite issues with low wages and few benefits for the immense responsibility of driving students safely and ensuring a positive experience inside the bus. The schedule also can make it difficult, and in some cases, there are jobs that will pay better for drivers with a CDL. And obviously, no doubt, a loud engine, a smelly cabin, and breathing in toxins can make that job even a little bit more unappealing, which is why electric school buses can offer a welcome alternative. It's a clean, quiet, and healthy working environment that can train drivers for great opportunities in up-and-coming technology such as electric vehicles. School districts have been using their electric school buses as a recruiting tool, as we hope to hear from some of the drivers here today. And we hope that this can play a great part in resolving this longstanding issue with school bus driver shortages. So with that, I'd like to pass it back to Brittany to get us started with our panel. Thank you.
Thank you. So now the moment we've all been waiting for, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our three drivers. Carmen Pena Duran is a bus operator in Modesto City Schools. For the past 20 years, Carmen has been a school bus operator, and she has over 22 years experience operating school buses. She started her transportation career in San Jose, California. She has experience with special education and general education as well. She also enjoys attending workshops for school transportation safety. She is now an electric school bus advocate because of all the health benefits and her own positive experiences. She loves her job and she is having fun. She is excited to come to work every day. Next, we have Margarita Villalobos, who's an ESB pilot driver for Salt Lake City School District. She goes by Margot. She has been a bus driver for 16 years, all in Salt Lake City, including 3 years driving an electric school bus. And last, we have Trish Ray, who's a bus driver and trainer in Three Rivers Community Schools. She's been a bus driver for TRCS for 6 years and an electric bus driver for nearly 4 years. She also volunteers with a local community food charity, Paws Packs. Trish trains new drivers to obtain their CDL, and she is currently assisting with supervisors' daily operations of people transportation. She's a mother of 6 and a grandmother of 2, and her passion for children drives her desire of improving the health and well-being of the children she reaches. She's dedicated to the children and community she serves by teaching benefits and habits of environmentally responsible choices and actions. She's driven an ESB since January 6th, 2020, the day of the first deployment in her district, learning along the way. She transports approximately 203 students each day, easily traversing 90 miles. She greatly welcomes these positive environmental changes for our future. Welcome all. We're so excited to speak to you today. And Trish, I noticed you are coming to us live from a bus. Is that your electric school bus that you're on? Oh, Trish, you're still on mute.
Yep, I've been driving her since January 2020.
Wow. Well, great. I'm so glad to have you all here. So I thought maybe we could start with a question for each of you on why did you become a school bus driver and what's your favorite part of driving the bus? So maybe I'll start with Margot and then Carmen and then Trish.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, to be honest with you, I start driving a bus just because I want a part-time job and be holidays with my family and I have time off. Now that I've been driving for 16 years, I love it and I like to see the kids growing up and be part of their lives, and it's exciting to be a bus driving.
Go ahead, Carmen.
The reason why I became a school bus driver because my father was a city bus driver and I seen the way he interacted with his passengers. So since I love working with children, I thought that I would try school bus driving. And one of the things that I do love is that I'm the first person and the last person the students see. So I like to be a positive influence. And a lot of our kids don't have that. So I love making a difference for our students.
That's so beautiful. And Trish, what about you?
Yeah, I started doing it to spend more time with my family as well, my children. My favorite part is just listening to the stories that the kids tell you every day, you know, the big variety. It just never gets boring. It never gets old.
Wow, that's amazing. You can tell, you know, it's about the kids, the people that you're moving. So Trish, I was actually wondering, diesel bus going somewhere else, but are you able to turn is your bus on now?
There, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. No, there was some background bus noise. An ice bus was going by. No, the bus isn't on, but I can turn it on right now.
Yeah, we can do that. I want to see if we can hear a difference.
You hear a little beep?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. It's running full bore.
Wow, that's quite a difference to what we just heard next door to you on that bus. And we didn't even plan that.
No, that was fitting.
Great. So maybe the three of you could talk a little bit about some of the differences in, you know, driving an electric school bus versus a combustion bus. And Trish, since we're on you, you can start and then we'll just go around.
Well, like we just said, it's so much quieter, you know. Well, everybody is shocked by, is it running? You know? So if the fumes, I've noticed the fumes greatly over the past almost 4 years. I feel better. My lungs are better. I didn't realize, you know, you think it's COVID or whatever that's making you feel yucky, but I feel better than I ever have. The smooth ride, you know, you don't have those gears shifting, and it's just, you know, smooth like an airplane almost. And the regen, that's different, the regenerative braking. So working with that, and you know, I've learned how to utilize it up my hills and at my turns. So when I get in my vehicle, which is an electric, you know, sometimes I anticipate that's going to be there. Oh, I got to slow down myself. You know, I don't have this here. So, and you know, I go for about 90 miles a day on my route.
Okay, yeah, so the noise, regenerative braking, definitely have felt that difference myself too. And then the fumes. My office used to be located at a bus depot where they would come in and pull fare boxes on public transit, and the buses would sit there and idle while they were pulling the fare boxes. And my window was open, and I never thought twice about all those fumes that were just coming in my window until they weren't. And it was like, oh, this is a big difference here. So Carmen, what about you? What have you experienced differently?
I feel the same, the way Trish said, the bus is a lot quieter, and I do suffer from asthma, so I'm not having to smell all the exhaust from the other buses when we're waiting at the school sites. I feel a huge difference when I accelerate the bus. I'm not having to press as hard, so it's better on my knees. And the turning radius is amazing in those buses. And I noticed the kids, they really love the buses, and so do I. There's just so many good things about this bus.
Awesome. Yeah. Now with the noise level on the bus being lower, are the kids quieter while they're
The
on there?
kids are, yes, the kids are much quieter. Yes, and it just makes just for a happy ride.
Oh, wow. And what about you, Margot?
Yeah, same thing. I don't have to worry much about wearing rubber gloves when I'm checking the oil or putting some DF and also diesel. So much quiet when I'm coming downhill. So nice because I let the gas pedal and it kind of slow down a lot. So it's much safer. That's how I feel like.
Gotcha. Wow. Yeah, I know can you talk about any of the training that you did to get used to driving with that regenerative braking and how the bus feels a little bit different? And we can start with Margot.
Yeah, the technician came over, you know, and teaching us about how to brake and how be easy on the brakes and the gas and everything, you know. So it's so you can get more mileage out of the battery power or whatever, you know, and it's so much better.
I have heard some school districts talk about their drivers having competitions to see who can get the most mileage. How about, do any of you guys do that?
Yes, we do it here at Modesto City Schools. I actually was the top driver with 121 miles to empty. So they call me the queen, charging queen. So I try to get the other drivers to up their charge. And actually we had a driver get up to 117 just recently. So I'm really excited about that. It kind of helps us all to see how far we can go with these buses.
Wow. So you can keep extending the amount of miles that you can go on the bus depending on how you drive it. So that's really
Yes.
interesting. So let me ask this. Were any of you skeptical about electric school buses before you got them? I think most of you had been driving for years before they came around. So talk to me about, you know, any of your hesitations or things you worried about that maybe now that you've driven one, you don't feel the same way, or you realized wasn't a problem. Anyone who can go.
I know for me, myself, I was very hesitant about driving these electric school buses because I came from a Thomas that I've been driving for over 10 years. And I did not want to get the electric school bus, but I'm so happy that I did. The route that I actually had, it was a choice. Either I keep my students and the route, that I've been doing for the past 10 years, or I would have to drive a diesel. So I went ahead and went with the electric school bus. That was the best decision I ever made. It was a win-win for me. I love driving my electric school bus.
Margot or Trish?
I was pretty apprehensive at first, just scared of what I didn't know. You know, I didn't know anything about it, and at the time I couldn't find too much out there about it that pertained to me. So it really was a lot of we did have a technician from the company come and go over it once or twice with us, but it was just getting out there and practicing it, you know, and seeing what it does and on the job training. And I'm glad I was the one that was brave enough to do it as well.
Yeah, same here. I was a little nervous at first, but then after I started driving, I'm so glad that I did it.
That's great. Great to hear. Now, you've talked a little bit about your driving efficiency. And I think Carmen, you mentioned hills. Trish, we know you're in Michigan. There's some cold weather, I hear sometimes there, right? Talk to us a little bit about driving the bus and in the particular conditions where you are. And I'll start with Trish.
When it gets pretty cold here, like below 20 degrees, we'll plug it in during the day and let the pump run. So that kind of keeps it up to temperature. There was one day ever during the winter that I couldn't drive it, and that's because the charger was frozen to the port in the bus. But once we got it unhooked, it started up and drove fine. So yes, we have ice, snow, hills. As you can imagine, 3 rivers. There are 3 rivers that run through our area. So there are tons of bridges, and, you know, bridges are icier when it's winter. And I mean, I just always amazed by the way it handles on any type of conditions.
I know we've heard people say there's concerns about it driving in that cold weather. So really, really excited to hear your firsthand experience. That seems like it handles just fine in there. So that's great. Carmen or Margot, what about you? What kind of things do you experience? Heat, hills, anything else?
In Modesto, California, we deal with a lot of triple digits out here in the valley. One of the things that I do love about the EV bus is that we have air conditioners, and with our idling laws, we can now keep the bus running in the school zones, whereas before we couldn't. It would be so hot, and now the kids are comfortable, and it just makes for a really nice drive. We also deal with a lot of traffic congestion, highways. So it's a really good bus, and I love all the benefits of having the EV bus.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, Salt Lake City, we have cold conditions. We says there is 2 seasons here, construction and winter. But that bus has been awesome.
So talking about the air conditioning and the heating, I know some people, want to know how that works in an electric school bus. And, from what I've seen, you tell me like your air conditioning works just like, any other bus on the air conditioning, and the heat is done with electricity as well. Is that right?
Yes, I actually think that it's better, because with the diesels, it was either low or high, or in the EV buses, we actually have temperature control, which helps enough a lot, because you're not too hot, you're not too cold. You can adjust the temperatures to the weather outside, which makes it very nice, which I absolutely love, and so do the students.
So on your coldest days, are you still warm in your bus?
Yes.
Carmen, yes. Trish, yes. Margot?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking at some of an interest in. Let's see. Oh, now it's saying my internet connection is unstable. Technology here. So could you tell me, maybe if you were going to talk to a bus operator from a school that was about to get them, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to that operator? And we'll go for each of you. And maybe I'll start with Carmen and then Margot and then Trish. What's the one thing that you would want to tell them?
I would tell them to do it. It's a game changer and it's a win-win. The students are happy, the bus driver is happy. It just makes for a perfect day. I love my bus. You will not regret it.
Same here, just give it a chance. A lot of people don't want to try it, but once you start driving it, you'll love it.
I said the same. I agree too. I said, do it. Just do it. Try it. You know, you'll find that right person. Somebody will come forward and you know, be the pioneer of it for your school district. We still have drivers here with me that they've never even, I don't even think they've ever even gotten inside of it and looked at how much spacious it is. And you know, but I just started training a new girl and I'm really excited about this because we have 2 electric buses and our other electric bus route is up for bid and she's got her sights set on that and I'm encouraging her to go for it. I don't think she will regret it.
So fantastic to hear. I know, like, I'm seeing a lot of like very specific questions in the chat, so I'm feeling these are other bus operators and they want to know in terms of driving in cities. I see a question here about cities such as in San Francisco. They hear that the ESBs don't do well. In your experience driving in a city with stop and go kind of traffic, how do you feel like the ESB performs?
I feel like it does okay. I do a lot of stop and go. It does take a little toll on the battery, you know, but you're prepared for what you're going to embark on every day. So, you know, and maybe not San Francisco hillies, I don't know, but we got hillies and, you know, I don't notice where it makes it or breaks it at all there.
My internet cut out, so I turned my video off to see if it'll keep working here. So I'm sorry, I missed a little bit of what you said. But just curious if anyone else had any experience driving in cities, hills, you know, anything that they've experienced specifically with their electric school bus.
I have not experienced driving in hills, but I can tell you the bus will roll back. But with the proper training and watching the manufacturer's video can help you with the rollbacks.
Yeah, I have the same experience too. A little rolling back when you go uphill and but nothing very serious and stop and go a lot on the city, but it's still good bus.
Fantastic. So have you ever run out of battery power and had to have your bus returned to school on a flatbed? I didn't think so. Can you talk a little bit about how you plan for that? Because I this is what I hear over and over, people so worried about running out of battery. And, you know, to me, it seems very similar, and you know what your fuel tank is and you can fill that up. Do you have a gauge that explains to you on the bus, you know, your state of charge, and how do you manage that? And do you feel like that's a lot of extra work or it just becomes second nature? Whoever would like to jump in and answer.
I used to look all the time at my battery charge every day, being worried and see how much charge I still have and everything. But once you know already your route, how many miles you're driving and everything, you get the hang of it. And then you feel so comfortable doing it every day.
Oh, Trish, you're on mute.
I have had my bus down to 3% before, and I was so scared. Like, how am I going to call and tell them they have to come send a truck to pick me up? And it went into what it was called a limp mode, and it wouldn't let me go below or over 30 miles per hour. And I got it home. I had about 3 more miles to traverse. But as far as, the daily miles, every day I put my bus up with between 20 and 40% still on the battery after going my 90 miles. So you don't take it anywhere you're not prepared to, you want to return from.
Carmen or Margot, anything to add to that?
No,
No, I'm good on that.
Okay, so well, actually, you know what? Some people are curious at what kind of bus that you're driving. So Carmen, then Margot, then Trish. What bus do you drive?
so I drive a Bluebird electric.
Okay,
Same here, Bluebird, full size.
okay. And Trish?
For which one? For the
A Lion C.
Okay. So Carmen, yours is a type C or a type D?
Please go do that one. Okay.
Oh, Carmen, you're on mute. Is it, I think I saw you said C,
Oh, and that's why
I am a type D.
a type D, and Margot?
Yes.
But if he
It's
was gonna
type
hang
C.
out for the game-
Type C. Okay, gotcha. So for those that may not know the difference, the type C is like a traditional, classic school bus with the engine, where the engine would be is on the front, an electric bus, not an engine, motors in there. And then the type D, it's in the rear of the bus, like a transit style bus. And those are typically have higher seating capacity there. Okay. What about your experience with charging? We haven't talked at all about that really. Do you as the bus operator handle the charging on your bus, or does someone else do that? Can you talk to me a little bit about the logistics for that? And anybody can jump in.
Yeah, we in the beginning having a lot of problems with charging because they were saying that the chargers didn't communicate with the buses or whatever. But soon as they got rid of those charges, and I don't know where the other ones came from, but now these ones work great for us. In the beginning, the mechanics were kind of dealing with it, and but now it's just so easy. Just come from our morning shift and plug it in afternoon, same thing, and we haven't had problems since.
I'm responsible for charging my bus every afternoon when I leave, every evening when I go home. I plug it in, and then in the morning I unplug it, leave it plugged in over the weekend. It's a level 2 charger. There are times when I'll do extra runs during the day, in between routes and things like that. So I just gauge it myself. If I think I need to plug it in for a little while, I do. It charges, I think max is like 80 mega amps a minute or something like that.
Same here for Modesto. We do charge our own in the morning after our AM routes and then after our PM routes. Also, if you learn that regenerative braking, that helps a lot with the charging. So,
Okay. All right, here's kind of a different question. I saw someone mentioned they're getting 8 buses and they have had concerns about safety in general for their electric buses and wanted to know, did that come up in your community? And if so, how you've addressed it, or if you've had any safety concerns. I'm assuming that's around the fact that it's a battery vehicle.
We invited our fire department here when the people from the company were going over all of it with us, and so that they could make themselves aware of what they needed to know. But other than that, there really weren't any other safety concerns.
People didn't think about a cell phone battery.
Anyone else?
Yeah, same here. We invite the first responders, and they were working with the manufacturer, the technician, and everybody else, and that's it.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like what I've heard from other school districts in our work across the US. It's a matter of, you know, communicating with your first responders that there's no additional increase in concerns around the batteries that need to be addressed, that these vehicles are being made by the same manufacturers that have made all other kinds of school buses. There's still many safety features and inspections that are done to ensure them. So you know, I guess it's fear of the unknown sometimes, but once you communicate, like all things there, then everybody's on the same page. And a best practice is to bring in your first responders and even your towing company, so they understand, you know, what's different and where they need to hook up the bus and that sort of thing. We had a question in here about where can bus charges? Can you only use the kinds of chargers that are at your school, or can other like public chargers be used? Do you know?
I know that here in Michigan, there are a couple places that you can look up that do have the compatible chargers for my bus. One being Warren Dunes and another one in Kalamazoo that I know for sure. So I haven't had the opportunity to do it yet, but I think about, well, I wonder how I could plan a trip to one of those places, you know, and then charge there and come back. But the opportunity hasn't presented itself.
Yeah, I think that's a piece that's come up. People ask about, oh, well, what about field trips or sporting events? How could we possibly do that with an electric school bus? And you know, there is a good range on these buses, but we know, you know, some of these trips are you know, very long. From what I have seen, many public chargers can be used to actually refill the buses. It's the same kind of charging port that's used on them. It's a matter of, does the software on the bus talk to the software in the charger? But for the most part, yeah, at any level 2 or DC fast charger, public can be used with these vehicles as well. So you can, you know, as more and more school districts get chargers on site, you can work out agreements where they're allowed to charge at your facility and they can charge, you know, you can charge at theirs and that sort of thing. And some cities have, you know, already put in chargers at the zoo or museums or other really popular places where I know schools bring kids with the school buses. So there's a lot of that kind of being built out. There was a question or a surprise, I guess, in here about if that a level 2 charger was enough for a school bus. I don't know if any of you all were involved with the, you know, the purchase or the picking of the chargers. From what I've seen, you know, these school buses do sit a lot of the time, right? You do trips in the morning and come back in the afternoon and sit for a little while. So that's an opportunity to charge there. And then the buses sit overnight so they can charge again. So, you know, you have a long amount of time to charge the bus. Have you had any issues with your chargers that you've used?
We haven't had any. We have 30 level 2 chargers, and we also have 2 BC chargers for the fast charging. We haven't had any issues with ours.
Okay, I'm gonna see if my internet can handle coming back on camera here for a minute. I think we are out of time for more questions. We have so many more in the chat that I didn't have a chance to get to. If you put questions in there, we will respond and all of that will be sent out with with the PowerPoint slides. A huge thank you to our panelists. We all know that being a school bus driver is such a critical job, and being an electric school bus driver takes the role to a whole new level. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So to wrap up, we have a couple of things. Don't leave yet. We have a very fun video that was created by Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia that we'd like to show you. By the end, I think you'll see why we chose to show it.
Welcome back to the Battle of the Buses. Up next, diesel versus electric.
Diesel has been FCPS' go-to bus for decades, but FCPS is committed to going to an all-electric fleet by 2035. Let's see how these competitors stack up.
The newcomer, electric, has a slight edge in horsepower, surprisingly. But the real showstopper is emissions. Look at that. Whoa!
Wow, 0 from electric, courtesy of that liquid-cooled battery engine.
It looks like the competition's about to get underway. Drivers, start your engines!
It's running now. There's no boom, boom, boom starting up like on a normal diesel bus.
Whoa, the strong silent type!
Impressive! Let's hear what the fans think of our competitors.
On a diesel bus that we have the motor and the engines right up front, and all that noise is coming straight to you. With this, with it being an EV bus, you don't have that noise anymore.
I got on the electric bus and I was like, oh, this is the Cadillac of Cadillacs. That's the future over there.
I mean, it's really cool. I mean, it drives smoothly. It makes like its whirring sound when it drives.
Kind of reminds me of like Walt Disney World's monorail. Wee, and then it goes.
I love it. It's really nice. It's quieter, so you can actually hear all the kids. So I'm actually able to engage them and have conversations.
It's a lot safer as far as the smell, the exhaust. We need a lot of these out on the road to help change our planet, change our world, make it for the better.
Well, there you have it, folks. The victory goes to electric!
Well, that's no shock. We look forward to seeing more of these school buses on the road.
You can be one of the first to drive these slick new electric buses.
Yes, by becoming a FCPS bus driver. For more information, go to fcps.edu and search bus driver.
So as you can see, ESBs can be a real highlight to share in your driver recruitment efforts. If you have your own stories about drivers joining your team to drive ESBs, we would love to hear it. We really hope you've enjoyed our event today and learning from our drivers. If you have any questions about being an electric school bus driver or about any part of the ESB adoption process, please reach out to WRI and the Alliance for Electric School Buses, whose websites you can see here. Before you go, we have another quick poll for you. To see who's interested in helping their districts to get on board with electric school buses. If you could fill that out, we are more than happy to try and follow up with you if you are interested. For those that are interested, our team will definitely be in touch. We also have a brief survey about this webinar so we can improve our future events. And my colleague is going to put the link in the chat. Thanks for taking 1 minute to complete it. We really, really appreciate your feedback so that we can improve in the content that we bring to you. We have dozens of free resources available, including a step-by-step guide to electrification for districts and other operators, a clearinghouse of electric school bus funding and financing opportunities, information on charging infrastructure and how to partner with your utility on an ESB deployment, tons of facts and figures to help you make the case for ESBs in your district. This includes content on why the transition to ESBs must center equity. And my colleague will be putting a link to our tools page in the chat. You can also schedule a phone conversation with myself or any of our team members in a one-on-one time. Those are also on the website. The Alliance for Electric School Buses has a wide range of resources and advocacy tools as well, including a resource directory for school districts, fact sheets on electric school buses, and federal funding programs, materials for advocates doing electric school bus education and policymaking. Finally, as a reminder, we'll send out the webinar recording and slides. Thank you all so much for coming, and have a great rest of your day.